China has been trying too hard to not let their Galwan casualties come out in the open. The youth has been arrested for speaking about it on Twitter. He said that the casualties suffered by China during the Galwan clash were due to their poor PLA military vehicles. China has refused to disclose Galwan casualties but have been exposed several times in the past. Chinese mouthpiece reporter had to delete a tweet where she claimed five casualties, and we had accessed videos of the PLA sending out urns to families of soldiers, denying them a funeral procession. Well, the question is Xi Jinping finding it too hard to stop the truth from coming out in front of the world? We'll talk about this with our notable guest. Joining me is Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, Ambassador Deepak Vohra, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Major General Dhruv Katoch, Defense and Strategic Affairs expert, Director of the India Foundation, also joins us. And last but not the least, Sumit Peer, political analyst, also with us on this very important debate. Professor Nalapat, let me start by asking you a simple question. What is Xi Jinping scared of? Why is he not letting these numbers tumble out of the closet? There is also understandably a lot of ill will against him in the military ranks because they feel they do not get the due respect that the army is supposed to get in any country for that matter. We had 40 casualties, we owned up to it.
Well, Vineet, allow me to say that my view on Xi Jinping is a little different from many of the others that I've heard. And my view is that he's dug himself in very solidly. He has ensured that yesterday's opposition to him, today's opposition to him, and tomorrow's opposition to him, in the sense of people who are likely to be opposing him, he has ensured all three have been eliminated, and at least 90% of them have been eliminated. So, in my personal view, he's quite safe. The Chinese say, kill a chicken to scare the farmer. I believe this is that. They are basically catching hold of this small little fellow who has made some tweet, frankly, that nobody, even in his family would have taken seriously. And they have done that with great fanfare, mainly to ensure that nobody, none of the families of the PLA soldiers who died at Galwan are going to ever talk about that, even in private, even, forget about internet groups, even privately. They're going to just keep that a secret. Why? Because I suspect the casualties are much more. In fact, I have some friends who access data in some countries which have got very good satellite tracking. And one of them called me and said in great excitement that, about 60 Chinese soldiers have died. And of course, he was able to track about 17 or 18 or so Indian thing because they were, unfortunately, it took some time for whatever. But he had told me at that time that about 60 Chinese soldiers had died, and he was using satellite imagery to come to that conclusion. So my view is there have been multiple casualties on the Chinese side, more than the Indian side, and this is what the PLA is reluctant to reveal, because the PLA has been telling its people that Indian soldiers are what Pakistan tells them, which is basically one Pakistani soldier is equal to 1,000 Indian soldiers. So one Chinese soldier must be equal to 5,000 Indian soldiers. And then if you're saying that, more than four Chinese soldiers have died to any one Indian soldier, well, there seems to be a problem in that particular mathematical theorem. So I do believe the chicken has been killed to scare the farmer.
Absolutely. Ambassador Vohra, China has been insulating information with a lot of dexterity. Even if we talk about COVID-19, it's really hard to believe, sir, that they only had 4,000 people who died as a result of this pandemic. The world is not going to buy if China says that they did not lose anybody in the Galwan clash. They've kept mum, and in fact, that has caused them more embarrassment.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to learn from you and the other bright minds on the panel. China has a tradition of being economical with the truth that we are all aware of, and Beijing is now seen increasingly as the lying, shameless bully whose expiry date is over. You can see the rising Sinophobia around the world. The Chinese media has almost blacked out coverage of what happened in Galwan and of Indo-China tensions, particularly of tensions in the South China Sea. They don't want their people to know that a few what the Chinese would consider third and fourth rate countries are now thumbing their noses at mighty China. They don't want their people to know that. This is China's truth trap, sir. Tell everything except the truth. Now, according to this American newspaper, US News and World Report, which I used to read when I was posted there, that the Chinese Ministry of Public Affairs actually called the parents of these kids who died in Galwan, the Chinese soldiers, and said, don't bury them, which is a Chinese tradition, but cremate them. And then you can mourn them locally. Interestingly, sir, in a few months from now, I think it's in the month of April, that they have a wonderful, wonderful festival. I've been to one of them. It's called the Festival of Tomb Sweeping, where you go to the tombs of your relatives, your near ones, your ancestors, and you actually clean them. Now, what will these guys do then? Because they don't want, the Chinese don't want memorials to their martyred soldiers. What a military. They probably learned from their concubine, the name of the concubine is Pakistan, which did the same thing in Kargil, refusing to accept casualties. How long this will go on, sir, is anybody's guess. But my firm conviction is the truth has to come out. And now it's coming out in bits and pieces, in dribbles and droplets. But the world knows that the Chinese lie through their teeth. It's not doing their reputation any good, sir.
Right. And General Katoch, how long will China be able to sustain this nefarious policy of threaten and control the local media from speaking out? In fact, sometimes it's not even the local Chinese media. Some of the CCP officials have also mistakenly spilled the beans. A gentleman by the name of Mr. Yang Ji went on to say that there is a rebellion brewing in the Chinese army because the government does not want to own up to the sacrifices which are being made by the Chinese military. And at the same time, their pensions are not being paid. There are about 50 million retired soldiers in China who are in fact on the verge, on the cusp of taking to the streets of Beijing, sir, and confront Xi Jinping.
I think what the situation really reflects in China as far as the military is concerned is an understanding of how difficult operations are in the high altitude areas. And for people who have been serving in those high altitude areas from the Chinese side, after having served there, after having suffered there, and then going back and not being acknowledged, does hurt. You see, everybody expects that, okay, if you're serving in a difficult area, there will be sacrifices and you will have to make them. But then people on the front lines expect the nation to accept the fact that their soldiers have made a sacrifice. You see, one of the things which happened in Kargil, which gave a great boost to the Indian soldiers in the front line, was the tremendous support which the people of India gave to our armed forces during the Kargil conflict. It was spontaneous, and it was highlighted by the media, and it came out in every single media domain, from television to the magazines to the newspapers. Now, when you black out what your army has done, regardless of what you see, that soldier, that Chinese soldier, is representing his country. Whether we like it or not, or whether what they did was right or wrong, he is a representative of his country, and his country needs to acknowledge the sacrifice which that soldier has made under very difficult circumstances. Now, in my personal view, it is not possible to keep the lid on it for all the time. Pakistan tried it in Kargil. They kept the lid on, and a time came when their military had to actually say, yes, it was our soldiers, and we had sent them, and they died. But it was a shame, as very, very correctly brought out by Ambassador Vora, when you don't accept your soldiers. In Kargil, they didn't expect this, they didn't respect the dead bodies. They refused to take them back. What is happening in China is a refusal to acknowledge their death. And I think this is something which is very hurtful. At some point of time, it has to come out. It may be 5 months, it may be 6 months. In fact, it may take a little bit more because, as Professor Nalpat has very rightly put it down, you kill a chicken to scare the farmer. So you have scared the public. But even if you scare the public, there is something you talk amongst your village. You talk amongst the people. Today is the internet age. Information has got a nasty habit of getting out. And I can assure you, rumors are far worse than the truth. So once rumors start getting out, they tend to get exaggerated. Truth is the best weapon. one of the lessons which I have learned throughout my life in the Indian Army is that because our spokespersons always spoke up and came out with the casualty figures up front, we have never had a controversy on this issue till date. Right? So we suffered casualties in Galwan, we owned up to it, we suffered casualties in Kargil. I was in Sri Lanka in Pavan, we suffered there. And whenever we suffered a casualty, we acknowledged it. We acknowledged the bravery of the sacrifice made by the individual who gave his life for the nation. And I think once a country stops recognizing the sacrifice of the soldiers, I think it is but a matter of time that they will have to pay a price for forgetting the men who are armed, who are dedicating their life to defend them.
Right. Sumit, the CIA, the MI6, the Mossad, even they don't stoop so low when it comes to the concealment of sensitive information, which is for the public good. What's going on in China? Why are they so hell-bent on keeping these numbers a secret? Obviously, their reputation is in tatters now for a number of reasons. Why would this, in fact, harm them in any way?
Vineet, good evening, Vineet. After all the eminent panelists made some very, very strong points, I have 5 or 6 quick points to make. You see, Vineet, the fact remains that anything about China today has to be seen with a microscope, because you cannot trust anything coming from their economy, from their numbers, from their COVID deaths, from the number of cases they have, from the case where the virus originated. Everything is a farce, it's a facade which has been created. China is the biggest facade what world has seen. That is my personal opinion about China. Now talk about Galwan. You see, the first thing about the Galwan is, what about this guy, this poor chap? I think he's a small-time operative of CCP only. They have told him, look, you create a story that it is not Indians, it is not 6 Bihar which killed the Chinese soldiers. They were faulty vehicles. वो सड़क पे जा रहे थे, the vehicle fell down from a cliff, and that's how the Chinese soldiers died. It is not the Indians who killed them. The truth is contrary. The second thing they want to say, there is something called as a state-run story. The state-run story is nobody was killed. No Chinese soldier was killed. The people who died, they possibly died in a road accident. So if anybody does not toe that line, this is the case study. This is what happens to him. So this poor chap has become the case study, what Professor Nalpat rightly said. Point number 3 is, this is the, why on this earth do not soldiers deserve a funeral? What is the difference between a PLA soldier and a Lashkar-e-Toiba militant today, or a terrorist today? Because soldiers deserve funerals, mercenaries and terrorists don't deserve funerals. Now, if China thinks that it is soldiers are mercenaries, because incidentally, when you work for PLA, you're not working for China. That's the point number 3. Point number 4 is, Vineet, about the local media. Local media of China, Global Times and all, when you and me were kids, we used to read the Chanda Mama. And we used to have these fancy stories. It is the Chanda Mama of the today. Their media is absurd. They do exercise, they put a video. They carry a gun, they put a video. They put a video, you cannot snatch the Chinese soldier's gun when he is sleeping. For the sake of God, every soldier is better or equal to them. Are you doing something out of this world? And the last thing is that I want to say that these soldiers which are fighting, they are second-generation soldiers. Their families are worried because they did not get that funeral. Their parents, their first generation might hit the roads. There are a lot of media reports about it. And we need last point. Today we know CCP as Chinese Communist Party. It's only a matter of time, because everything about China is a facade and the like. CCP will be known as corrupt Chinese practices. That is the truth of CCP. It's not Chinese Communist Party. It's corrupt Chinese practices where they lie, they create facades, they lie, they create facades, they lie, they create facades. That's all China is about. From economy, Galwan, everything is a facade. Everything is face managed. I don't know what kind of a country is this, and what kind of a leadership is this. Where do they want to take China? Where are they heading China to? It's only disaster. It's only the breakup of China, which is very, very imminent, matter of time.
Okay, that's a creative acronym that you've devised for the CCP. But Professor Nalapat, there's dislike and displeasure within China and outside of it as well. Do you think that is going to be eclipsed by the dependence on the CCP, the threat of the CCP within China and perhaps even outside?
Well, Vineet, I want to just add to what the general said and add my humble namaste to the soldiers of the Indian Armed Forces, frankly. And I'd like to say that as an Indian, I am really grateful to them for the way they are, for their dedication, for their bravery, for their courage. I think the PLA realized that there is something wrong with what the Pakistanis are telling them when they came face to face with reality in the form of the Indian soldier. Having said that, I want to point out that in my view, And look, I would like to say that in my view, Xi Jinping is a very strong leader and he is in full command of the party, and the party is very, very powerful in China. He has set out to create China, in a sense, to eclipse the United States. So, in a sense, this battle with the US was foreseen by China long before it was foreseen by the United States. If you see some of what I've been writing, you can see how, in my view, the Chinese have been separating the financial chains, creating logistics chains, etc. The difficulty is a lot of Chinese policy in hotspots, the entire Himalayan range, the South China Sea, the Taiwan Straits, is driven by the perspective of the PLA. So essentially, you are allowing the military to decide foreign security and other policies. Now, that is a very dangerous thing. You know, the military are wonderful people when it comes to a fight, but if it's not a fight, then you need diplomats. And if I may pardon me very much, Ambassador, but in India, this is not really appreciated. You also need people like Sumit Peer who are independent analysts, and you may also need a few academics like the Chinese have, the Japanese have, the Americans have, but the Indians don't seem to value. Having said that, I want to say this is a very dangerous game that the Chinese leadership is playing, handing over foreign policy to the PLA. And on India, the foreign policy has been handed over to the PLA, and the PLA is outsourced it to the GHQ Rawalpindi. So there's a very combustible mixture there. And I would like to remind you, finally, but what I wrote in Sunday Guardian some time ago, that if there is a shock military defeat in any of these theaters, well, then that is going to be a huge shock to the Chinese leadership and therefore the Chinese, the core leadership. Then that means the Chinese Communist Party and, frankly, the Chinese state. So the way expectations have been built up of an invincible China, an unconquerable China, one shock military defeat can bring that whole thing tumbling down.
Right, absolutely. And Ambassador Vora, like Professor Nalapat pointed out, the empire of lies is perhaps going to collapse if there is a shock defeat at any of these theaters. But primarily so, do you think, sir, that the party's concern, the CCP's concern today, as it has been exposed, is not improving the lives of the downtrodden? It's not having good economic relationship with anybody else. It's only power. And that is the reason why they find themselves in this pickle.
Oh, absolutely. That's a no-brainer. The Chinese Communist Party is only concerned about its own survival, sees itself as the defender of China's future. If they are not around, China will go away. Professor Nalapat, you talked about the soldiers not being acknowledged their deaths. We all remember Alfred Lord Tennyson's charge of the Light Brigade. There's not to reason why there's but to do and die. And the Chinese, amazingly, they don't honor the fellows who died for the stupidity of China's leaders. Whatever we have done, we have acknowledged this. General, I'm not sure that they will do it in 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 months. Remember that the 1962 casualties, they only acknowledged after 20 years when they said we lost 2,500 people. Given the fudge factor of China, it was probably 10,000. The Chinese military has never won a war, not even 62, but we'll talk about that another time. We have never lost a war. Sir, our buddy, your buddy, and everybody else, a chap called Sun Tzu, talked about winning a war without fighting. Well, the Chinese have proved to the world that you can lose a war without fighting. Because if you fight, you stand exposed.
General Katoch, do you think that it is also, a cusp of a timeline where the West, as well as other countries, have realized that they misread China? They don't want anything to do with the democratic aspirations of the world. They are happy in that despotic mode.
You see, I'm not sure if the West has even taken the pains, or even India has taken the pains to reach China. Whatever China has been doing, any analyst, Professor Nalapat has been analyzing them for quite some time. He has seen those trends as an analyst for quite some time, right? So the evidence was there all the time. Somebody simply had to pick it up and speak it out. But there was perhaps within India and within the rest of the world, there was a sense of denial as to what China is really up to. Even America says that, okay, if they become economically strong and if the markets merge, then the Chinese policies will change. Now, that was an exercise in self-denial. Nothing changed. You see, the larger danger is, and I tend to agree with Professor Nalpat's assessment, that Xi Jinping has got no opposition, right? All the opposition which was there to him, including within the PLA, has been eliminated, and now he is the chairman of the military commission himself. You see, this is, I think, because he has got no opposition, that reflects the larger danger. And the larger danger is that he will be surrounded now by people, and the advice and the inputs which he gets will be an echo chamber of what he himself is thinking. Now, that is the danger, because there will be no mechanisms within your system, within the CCP, to provide a corrective. Should that happen, then we are likely to see more and more conflicts. I just slightly disagree with Professor Nalpat when he says that the PLA is actually running the show. I don't think the PLA is running the show. I think nothing happens in the Chinese, in the PLA, without the prior specific sanction of the Chinese Communist Party. Within each of their units, within their divisions and the core headquarters, you have the representative of the PLA. There is the political appointee there. So all actions, in my view, are emanating from Xi Jinping himself. And I think that is where this man is making a mistake, because as Professor Nalpat very rightly points out, should it lead to a military defeat? Now you have built up expectations to such a great high that one military defeat, I don't think psychologically they will be able to take. And this is the problem. You know, when Mao Zedong won his wars, he accepted casualties. He accepted the fact that hundreds of thousands will die. And he accepted the fact that it will take a long deal of time. This establishment is nowhere near changing or shaping perceptions of his country on those lines. They have shaped a perception that the Chinese are invincible. That bubble, I'm certain, will burst at some point of time, and then we will see what the consequences are.
Right, absolutely. And Sumit, you know, the entire country of China is under surveillance. In fact, it's one of the biggest mechanisms of keeping a watch on your own citizens, as we get to see in China. It was, in fact, a totalitarian ambition of Mao Zedong, which has been actualized today. And Xi, too, wants people not only to, in fact, speak alike, he wants them to think alike as well. And that is the reason why information is so hard to come out of China. But like Ambassador Vohra said, that sooner than later, the truth has to prevail.
I think, Vinny, this talks about how weak the communist ideology, the CCP, is. If you're worried about a person going to Twitter and putting his comments and you send a police to taking up, this can only talk about how weak you are, how insecure you are. Today, Xi is very, very insecure because this communism has created the new feudal lords. These people who are powerful people within CCP are the new kings or the feudal lords or the Nawabs of the China. The emperors have not gone back. Last emperor has not gone, but it has changed the shape. Now today they wear suits and ties. That is what China is about. So they want that power to remain with them, and the normal Chinese person is a subject. He's supposed to produce wealth for you, and I'm supposed to enjoy, and I'm supposed to go into all the jets and do all the world. But that is what's the reality of China, and that's what the reality of CCP is about. That is why they are even scared of a person putting a tweet or the information coming out, because they don't want that perception to die. When he's talking about the Galwan, what we were talking earlier, remember they had sent few master art or kung fu trainers to train their people. Now what was the outcome? We all know. Now second thing I want to tell you, they scare us. We all talk about the Shinzu, how to win war without fighting a bullet and all that. They talk about Shinzu, sir. I talk to them about Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj. Ik nu ek lakh ladawa. Battle of Chankor Sahib. Go and let them read Battle of Chankor Sahib and know the valor of India and Indians. Then dare to come to our borders and challenge us. If you just read Zafarnama, if you read the Battle of Chankor Sahib, you would have never dared to leave your barracks. That is what India is about. It's not about your thinker who's hallucinating on opium and telling you how can you win wars without fighting a bullet or taking out your sword. It is about a real general who has fought wars and won. And it is in documented history just 200-300 years back. It's not 10,000 years back, which I'm talking about. And the second thing is that the perception of China is shattered. China stands exposed. Their designs stand exposed. And again, Vineet, I'll repeat myself, it's the biggest facade that the world has ever seen. China is a facade and CCP is the guardian. And these feudal lords, these kings of China, these surviving emperors of China want it to be like that. Xi wants to be the new king of the undisputed king of China. He's not the president, and we should stop addressing him as president of China. We should call him the general secretary of Chinese Communist Party, because that is what he really is. He's not a president. He doesn't deserve to be called a president.
Okay, Ambassador Vora wanted to come in. So go ahead.
I just wanted to say, General Katoch, you're quite right. He is the chairman of the Central Military Commission, but he's also the chairman of everything. And his echo chamber is the echo chamber of autism. By the way, China, Mr. Peer has rightly pointed out, spends more on internal security than it does on defense. And this poor fellow that they've nabbed, the police issued a statement saying that he made a sincere apology. How did they know he was sincere? I mean, I've heard of facial recognition technology. Now they've got mind reading technology also. How do you know the fellow was being sincere? Why didn't he say that India or America paid him to write this? Why didn't he claim that his grandfather's name is Bill Gates or something like this? I'm sure the Chinese could get whatever they want out of this character. But ultimately, sir, lies, deceit, deception destroys itself. You don't need anything else to destroy them.
Professor Nalapat, just a couple of minutes left into the show. Do you think that this has been the Chinese disposition all along? If I remember correctly, even during the 90s in the province of Henan, when the AIDS virus broke out, the first response that China had was to ostracize all those people who were suffering from this deadly disease and then forget about it. But unfortunately, they can't do that to the rest of the world. If they can do it in China, they can do it in China, but not outside of the Chinese territory.
Well, Vineet, I just want to say that the Chinese have gone very far in artificial intelligence, and they have been looking to soak up Indian data. They've been looking, for example, they have flooded the Indian market. I mean, all kinds of stuff is now produced from China and sold in India. All kinds of stuff. I mean, they have absolutely flooded the market in the last 15 years. And they're now trying to flood as many markets as possible. And the reality is that China is now very close to being a significant threat, even to the United States, in the Indo-Pacific. And that is why the Americans have finally woken up. As I said, the Chinese from the beginning were clear they were in a war with America. And very frankly, that is where we need to be clear about what our strategy has to be. We are sitting on a wall which is actually cut into two parts. And those two parts are moving away from each other. So if you're sitting on that wall, you're going to fall in the crevice between those two parts. You have to jump off on one side or the other. You can't sit on the wall anymore. And I've been, as General says, I've been pointing out about Xi Jinping's strategy. I've been pointing out about finally that Trump has woken up. I've been talking about Cold War 2.0. The editor of The Economist is very upset about that. She feels America and EU and China, like three people, they can get together over a cup of tea and sort out everything. The poor lady is living in a dream world. I only want to say, we cannot live in a dream world. We have to jump off that wall and take sides.
Okay, we've almost run out of time, but a quick reaction from General Katoch and Sumit, and then we wrap up. General Katoch?
Yes, we have spoken of the way China has hidden their casualties, the people who fell sick during the coronavirus. There are some reports that the number of people who have actually died is many, many times more than what they have been, what China has actually put out. Now, the same way they are concealing these military casualties, as my other fellow panelists have brought out, at some point of time, the truth is going to come out. And when that truth comes out, I think the people of China will have quite something to say to their Communist Party leaders as to why did you hide something which is so close to our hearts.
All right, Sumit?
I want to say, there are just two quick points. One was taken from the Mahabharata. Yes, echoed equally that only your strength can bring peace. That is what works with China. See what they have done to these three Canadians, whom they caught alleged for some spying.
Okay.
And as for some
just 10 seconds, then we wrap up. We've unfortunately run out of time.
6, and 2 of them were already hanged. And a kangaroo court in China convicts 3 Canadians for spying, and within hours, they hanged 2 of the Chinese nationals. This is what is the true face of China. This is what China is all about.
All right, appreciate your emotions on China, but unfortunately, we have completely run out of time here. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.